Now, every now and again, Kathleen Kennedy will come out and either apologize or blame the fans or just do something in between that contradicts itself. And this is something that happens, all the time when it comes to her reacting to how the fans are really talking about with her Star Wars projects, The Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, and a lot more than that as well. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that there's a lot of things happening between John, George, and Dave to really attempt to bring Star Wars back to the way it used to be, we also have Kathleen Kennedy at the center, struggling with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, even though John and Dave are coming back to really handle, give or take, roughly 40% of each project to really attempt to bring it back to at least being a decent Star Wars release, right? Now that brings us to exactly what Kathleen Kennedy had to say about the fans, about the overall Star Wars community, and well, she didn't really have the best things to say about the Star Wars fandom at heart. We know that Kathleen Kennedy always likes to blame the fans and puts them on full blast all the time, and the latest about what really happened really kind of does this once again, and it doesn't stop there. So let's dive into exactly what she had to say about the Star Wars fans and a whole lot more than that. Now, before I get to this, we know that Kathleen Kennedy is initiating a lot of reshoots and rewrites for the Star Wars franchise as we speak when it comes to the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew specifically, and it's only causing more issues for John and Dave's work, since they are attempting to fix certain scenes, specifically for both, of course, those shows. Now, on top of this, alright, one thing about all of this is that with Kathleen Kennedy now developing parts of the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, since John and Dave took over portions of the show, both series are still struggling to meet deadlines. In a recent interview, Kathleen Kennedy went on to blame the fans again for something substantial that is only dividing the fandom even more. Kennedy went on to state the following in a recent interview. The way I see it is the fandom is not ready for diversity, and this is the way that they actually refuse to congratulate us on our success so far with the work that we did on Acolyte and Skeleton Crew. It's these type of fans that are causing more division within the community, and I will put it out there that this needs to stop. It's becoming, of course, a big problem all around, and it's the one that actually blocks one's motivation for our creators, like Leslie, when she sees fans not really talking highly about her show, or even John Watts with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, and this is all related to how we are trying to do something very new with the fans, and of course, new with the stories to tell. Seeing fans like this needs to shut up and grow up and realize the Star Wars, of course, franchise is not always about an old style that was created decades ago. Now, I want to pause here real quick about what Kathleen Kennedy is really putting out here, is that she's really being very defensive and direct with the fans, really kind of putting the fans on full blast again, saying that fans that are not talking highly about the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew are those that do not support diversity. Now, again, I really get tired when somebody like Kathleen Kennedy pulls the diversity card and really just puts them on full blast about that. Just because fans aren't talking highly about the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew just yet doesn't mean that we are against diversity, alright? Look, I mean, this is something that is a big problem right now in, the current state of Hollywood, is that they're always pushing, certain agendas that really don't need to be pushed. If it serves the story, fine, let it be. But if you're just going to push things just for the sake of pushing things, it doesn't work naturally. And that's when fans have a problem with certain things that they actually, push into the overall story, right? So that's Kathleen Kennedy's problem right now with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew and exactly what's been going on with those two projects. This is exactly why the Disney board members have been very unhappy with a lot of test footage that has been supplied by, of course, Kennedy, Leslie, and John Watts for both shows. It's been a very big problem among not just, Kennedy and Leslie, but also for the executives to deal with. The Disney executives are having a very hard time with the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew and how they're going to be able to really find avenues or ways to market these projects. So on to the next thing. She goes on to elaborate. It's about trying and testing new styles to work with and attempting to do something completely new. And the fans that can't accept that are only dividing the fan base worse every single year. And we have noticed this. The fans that never liked The Last Jedi or never supporting it clearly don't have a good taste for the franchise and only want to create more toxicity in the fandom. This is not fair and not responsible and only creates problems for our creators and writers and how they are in the process of developing new Star Wars projects. It's the fans that are only making things worse for our creative leads and developing these stories and more. So, I don't know if you guys knew this, but Leslie Headland, the writer of the Acolyte series, openly stated about 9 months ago, this was quite a while ago by the way, about how she never really watched the prequel trilogy movies, she never watched them through and through, she never really invested all her time in those films, and that the Acolyte to her is just a big opportunity. Now sure, Leslie has said that she has read some of the expanded universe books and comics and stuff like that, but she did say that she never really watched the prequel trilogy movies from start to finish. And that, I think, causes a big problem. That's when you know that the retcons that they are making toward the prequels are very much blinded. They don't know what they're really doing. They don't really know the consequences of certain retcons toward the prequel trilogy films. And that only creates, further division in and of itself. So Kathleen Kennedy's saying the fans that are not talking highly about the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew, that they are the ones that are creating division, that's completely misguided and wrong. It's actually quite the opposite. It's Kathleen Kennedy and Leslie creating the division by initiating said retcons toward the prequels using the Acolyte show. And thankfully, yes, we do have John and Dave, taking over roughly 40% of the show and attempting to tame the series to a degree, but do I believe it's going to save it through and through? I'm not so quite sure about that, because you still have Kennedy involved. You still have Kennedy calling the shots on that show in particular. So really, this plan by Disney to have John and Dave involved, it's only going to actually make it a little bit more, I guess you could say, acceptable, but it's not really going to change things thoroughly. So anyways, moving beyond all of this, we know that John and Dave are just trying to do whatever they can to turn Star Wars around. And you know what? I think that at the same exact time, you have to have a clear mind when you're doing this. If you're under too much stress, if you're under too much, power, of course, trying to get all this work done at the same exact time with a lot of crew and a lot of cast all at once, you may not be thinking, logically, and that's why they have to take this very slow, and they have to really realize what they're doing at the same exact time. So anyways, with that being put out there and said, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to